This is Leaders in the Trenches, and your host today is Gene Hammett.
Have you ever wondered why you're not actually doing what you want to do? What I mean by that is, have you ever know exactly how to get the result that you wanted, but something was holding you back? My guess is that something is in your head. Our guest today is Michael Zipursky. Is that right? Why is it in the head?
It's always in the head. All of us, I think, have been in that situation, Gene, that you just mentioned, where we know we should be doing something. Sometimes we even know what we should be doing, but we don't do it. And that's mindset, right? That's the number one most critical factor and area that determines our success.
Well, get the full interview here at Leaders in the Trenches. This is leadersinthetrenches.com/311. That's episode 311. All right. Stay tuned for the interview. All right. Done. Michael, how are you?
I'm wonderful. How you doing, Gene?
Well, I'm fantastic. This is another episode of Leaders in the Trenches. I want you to start off with telling us a little bit about you and who you serve.
Sure. So my name is Michael Zipursky, and I work with B2B consultants through consultingsuccess.com. And we focus on helping consultants to attract more clients, to build their pipeline with more qualified leads, increase their fees, and ultimately grow their businesses so that they can achieve the level of freedom, flexibility, income, and impact that they're really looking for.
Well, I know you have this very focused market of consultants, and being a consultant, I'm kind of attracted to what you're doing, and it really is exciting. You know, a lot of the people listening to the show are probably in the consulting world. At least they're doing some kind of project work, but they're also people outside of that. They're people that are facing new challenges as leaders, and you've written a book on the mindset. So tell us in your own words, like, what is mindset to you?
Yeah, so the book that I wrote is called The Elite Consulting Mind. And, my big belief, Gene, is that very often many of us focus our time on learning about strategy and tactics. And those things are certainly very important. But what I've observed in, the hundreds of consultants that I've worked with over the years and all the businesses that I've built, it's the mindset that really plays the biggest role. And so, you can know what you need to do, but if at the end of the day, you're not taking action on that because you have some kind of mental block, there's something going on in your mind that is holding you back from taking the action that is going to create the result that you want. That's the opportunity. And that's really what mindset is to me. It's, we all have this amazing potential. Every single one of us has amazing potential to achieve what we want. But why do some people achieve it and others don't? It's not because we don't know what to do. It's more often because we're not doing it. And so the question is, why aren't we doing it?
That reminds me of my book. I'm going to jump up here.
Yeah.
The show. So the audience probably has heard some of this, so I won't go to any depth of this, but the real short version of this is I got to the point in my business where I was successful. About 5 years in, I had freedom, I had the money, and I wanted to innovate, but I wouldn't let myself do it. And it wasn't because I didn't think I could do it. It's because I got trapped by my success, which is it's a mindset limitation that I put on myself. Is like, well, I have to let go of this to have that. And I don't want to let go of this because this is pretty sweet.
Definitely. Yeah. I mean, mindset can apply to so many different areas, right? It's not even just business. It's certainly even in our relationships, in our health, our wellness. I mean, it's across the board. It's everything.
So when you see someone struggling with mindset, I know how I activate that. What is it you do with these leaders that you're working with to help them see that their mindset is kind of a belief that they should let go of?
Yeah, I mean, the big factor, kind of the formula that we always look at is that competence plus confidence equals success. So in order for someone to achieve the result that they want, whatever that result may be that they're after, they first need to know what to do. I mean, if someone doesn't have any sense of what step to take, then they're not going to take that step because there's a lot of fear going around that. But once you know what to do, then the second part of it is really, the confidence to do it, right? So you have the competence, then you need the confidence. And, that's really the challenge. And so what we always zero in and where we spend time, when we're speaking with our clients is to understand what's going through their mind. I mean, most of us, and I'm sure, Gene, you've experienced this yourself with the people that you've worked with over the years, right? It's sometimes just asking questions and looking at a situation from a different angle that can help someone or yourself to realize what's really going on. And in almost all cases, it's just a matter of taking that action, right? It's like, okay, I guess I'm not going to die if I take it. I guess increasing my fees because now I understand, right? So I have the competence. I understand now what I need to do to increase my fees. I understand I need to, focus more on value and identify it. We can talk more about that if you want, but once you know what you need to do, then you'll feel more comfortable to go about doing it. And when you go and do it, then you get to actually taste what it's really like and you get to learn. And I think that's really a big key, right? A lot of people look at this fear of failure. But if you have failure in your mind, you're going to be much less likely to take action. But if you look at the experience of failing really as one of learning, then we could argue, and I think I would certainly argue, and in my experience, that the more that you can fail is really the more that you can learn. It's not a bad thing. It's really just helping you to get closer to identifying what you want most and getting the result that you want most, right? The more that you're actually failing, the more that you're eliminating things that don't work, which means that you're closer to actually reaching what does work.
I give a speech on hypergrowth and how leadership inspires ownership. And what you're talking about failure, there's some of the companies in the research I did where they actually celebrate failure. Could you imagine that? Right?
Well,
how cool that would be?
I think it's exceptional. I mean, it's the word that people have in their mind, like, oh, that's a bad thing. Let's just take, a marketing situation. Someone knows they need to make a follow-up call or they need to reach out to someone, but they're afraid to do it. Why? Because they're afraid of what that person might say or they might get turned down. But what's the result that you want? And if picking up that phone, maybe it's going to work. Well, it's certainly not going to work if you don't try, right? Or if you don't send that email, or if you don't attend that event, or whatever the situation may be, it requires action. And I think that's why I think all of us actually know people who are less educated than we are. And from a 30,000 foot view, you'd say, why should that person be more successful than I am? But they are more successful. And if you really boil it down and hone in onto what the difference is, it's that person is taking more action, right? Yeah. They're not overanalyzing. They're not just kind of staying within the building, thinking, planning all the time. They're out there taking action. They're learning from those experiences, and that's ultimately what allows them to get greater results.
So, are you saying that leaders that let people fail are powerful leaders?
What I would say is that leaders that give their team the opportunity to fail can see much greater success because they learn faster. Now, failing once and learning from that experience, I think, is a great thing. Failing and doing the same thing and making the same mistakes over and over means that there's a process or a system that is not in place that should be in place.
Right. But having that ability to empower them to actually fail is such a good thing that we're both in agreement there. I want to take you to a little bit of a pivot here, and I didn't plan for this, Michael, but you have been talking to so many people and getting them to see these mindset shifts in the leadership world. How do you begin that conversation with someone that is kind of trapped by a fear?
Yeah, the first step is just to engage in a conversation. The interesting thing about that is that the person, so let's just say we're talking about a CEO, and the CEO is dealing with some challenges, and you as a coach or a consultant know that that there's an issue there. The first thing is that CEO needs to want to make a change. I'm not interested in working with people who aren't looking to make a change or to improve. My business is not the business of arm twisting. My business is working with people who want to see greater results. So when you encounter someone who recognizes that there's opportunity for them to improve, they want something more from themselves, they want to create greater levels of performance, then it all starts with a conversation. And it all starts by asking questions to better understand where they are, where they want to be, and what they feel is holding them back from getting there.
So going back to my research, this is very specific into, hypergrowth tendencies of companies. If you can actually create ownership, that feeling of ownership, one discipline behind that is to have conversations about what do they want to grow personally.
Yeah, for sure.
And really that we kind of skip over those things. We have this conversation on company goals. We have a conversation on team goals, but we rarely talk about that how do you as a person want to grow here? So is that what you're saying? It's like really you're starting this conversation off with, you may be identifying, you may see things that they can't see. Like that's the consulting way.
For sure. Yeah. The ability to see things from a different perspective, right? I mean, we're all so busy in the day-to-day working, kind of within our businesses, that being able to look at our businesses or get the viewpoint from, a different position kind of outside the business, there's certainly a lot of value in that. I mean, back to your question though, Gene, it really is about what is important to that person, because there is no one area that is important. To some, it might be top of mind is increasing their income, but not just for the sake of income. It might be for this, for their children. It might be for their grandchildren. There's a lot of different reasons. But I do agree that for most of the people that I've worked with, just making more money for the sake of making more money isn't what drives them, right? There's a lot going on beyond that, typically to do with them wanting to achieve just greater performance for themselves, being able to feel like they're making greater strides, having more freedom and more flexibility, being able to travel, spend more time with their loved ones. Those are the things that are personally of interest and typically what really drive people.
So once you've had this initial part of the conversation, and I wrote down a few things here about, what do you want to change? What do you want? Where do you want to grow? What's important to you? What do you do from there? Like once you kind of have that as a basis, where do you take the conversation?
Yeah, so it depends, what that is. In my world, we're very focused on helping consultants to grow their business. And so, my expertise is then helping them to kind of unlock some of the challenges that they may be having, whether it's around lead generation or increasing their fees or winning more proposals. If this is a situation of someone wanting to improve their personal lives or their health, I mean, I can speak from my own experience, but that's not my expertise. And I don't spend most of my time, kind of in those areas around the B2C or kind of the personal stuff. But I do believe that it is very important. And so there's a lot of conversations that we've had with clients around, aligning their personal and their business goals.
So that is the reason I just mentioned before about the personal and the team and the company goals. It's not just to understand them, but it's the alignment process.
Definitely.
When you are working with people, do you have any kind of exercises or kind of things that you walk them through when they say, well, I want to grow this way. I want to become a better consultant, right? We'll use the words of your world. And I want to be world-class in this one area. What is it how do you align that so that they move forward?
Yeah, I mean, whether someone's a consultant or a leader, in the trenches, the first question I think that's always a great one to ask is why. If someone wants to be better at something, or someone tells you they want to achieve something specific, why do they want to achieve that? I know, just to give you a quick little example, I was speaking with a client last week who was looking at acquiring another business. And, they were very intent on, they were spending a great deal of time kind of looking into the financials and the possibilities and the additional money they would need to put into it. So the question that I raised was like, why do you want to do this, right? What do you really want to achieve? What's the end goal here? And through a conversation of understanding what is it they really wanted to achieve, we actually figured out that acquiring the business wasn't the right move for them, that they could actually see much greater impact. They could see greater income. They could see greater freedom, so that them being less involved in the day-to-day of the business by taking a completely different route, one that would allow them to get a much greater result with a lot less time and actually deliver it to them much faster.
Which that why is such an important aspect to any belief that might be holding you back. Like, why do you believe that? Why do you really hold on to something? Do you use any kind of challenging questions around, how do we see this from another perspective, and or anything else that gets them to really make a shift or transformation?
Yeah, I mean, so that's a really great question. I mean, I'm a big fan of asking questions, and the image that I always offer my clients when they're having conversations with prospective clients in their own business is to be thinking about, peeling the layers back from an onion. I think the big mistake that a lot of leaders or consultants or just anyone in business makes is that when they're in a conversation, they're just really scratching the surface. They ask a question and they just move on. But the real value, the real change happens when you go deeper. And so if you're asking someone a question, you say, well, why is that important to you? And they tell you what they're thinking is, you don't just move on and say, oh, great, thanks, and go on to the next question. I mean, ask deeper about that. If they're saying, we want to grow our business by, we want to grow our business. Don't say, okay, great, and move on. Tell them, well, by how much do you want to grow your business? And when you grow by that amount, what would that mean to you? What would that allow you to do? How will that impact the rest of the organization? How will that make you feel personally? And I think this kind of framework, this idea of peeling the layers back from the onion, can be applied to anything. But I just continue to observe that as you go deeper and deeper in your line of questioning, not only will you as a leader or as a consultant learn more, which allows you to make better recommendations and to take greater and more accurate action, but the person that you're speaking with will in fact find much greater value in the conversation, because they'll see things in a way that they've never seen them before, because no one has typically ever asked them those kinds of questions before.
So would you say that in a mindset shift, it really is getting someone to see a new perspective?
Yeah, but I would position it a little bit differently, Gene.
Okay.
I would say that it's not so much about getting them; it's about asking questions that allow them to arrive at seeing things in a different way. No one wants to be told how they should see things, but if you can ask questions that helps them to arrive at clarity or at an answer or at a direction that resonates with them, and they just haven't been able to see that before, that's life changing, because it empowers them.
So the key word there is allow.
I would say, yeah, or allow or helps them, supports them,
yep,
rather than pushes them or makes them or persuades them. That's the kind of language that a lot of people use these days, and even in sales, to close a sale. And I get that it's kind of the industry jargon, but no one wants to be closed, right? People want to buy something that aligns and resonates with what's important to them.
Perfect. So when you are working with the leaders inside your company, just like I work with leaders inside what I do, you are working on the competency part first, the strategy first, or the mindset first? Which one comes first?
Yeah, that's a really great question. And it depends, right? Because there's people who have the mindset piece already, they're pretty strong there. Like they're go-getters. They know what they know they need to make things happen. They're prepared to invest in themselves, but they just don't know how to get there. And for those people, it's really then just about laying out a plan specific to their situation that they can follow and start seeing results. For others, they've been collecting information for years. They know a lot, but there's something else holding them back from taking action on the information that they know. And so for those people, then you want to definitely focus in more on the mindset first, because without that, it doesn't matter what plan they have in front of them. They're not going to take action on it. So it really depends on where that person is at.
Well, and that's the reason we're having this conversation, because the power of leading people is so important that you can't just tell people what to do and expect them just to do it.
Yeah.
You and I both know that we probably wanted to do that at certain times, because it would be so much shorter if they would just do it, but it just doesn't work out the way we want it to. We have to have these conversations that enlighten them to go, oh, that is a possibility.
Right. Yeah. It's empathy, it's understanding. And I think for anyone that's playing the short-term game, they might just try and, go to a real quick result. But anyone like Gene, like yourself or myself, that is in this for the long term, that really cares about, results and about clients for the long term, then it's a different game, right? Because just giving someone something that might help them to see an instant result, but isn't going to serve them well in the future, it isn't going to feel good, right? At the end of the day, what we want is people to have real results for a long period of time, to see lasting change, to really have a transformation. And so with that mindset and with that in mind, it's really important to figure out where people are and how can you best serve them for the place that they are right now.
I have so enjoyed this conversation, but we've run out of time. I always have a practical and actionable element to this, Michael. If mindset is something that that you've got to challenge either within yourself or within someone that you're working with, what is the practical and actionable kind of exercise that you use with them to really get them to be open to something else?
Yeah, so that's a great question. And here's what I would say, Gene, find someone that can help you, because there's so many specific situations, right? And so to try and kind of diagnose what is going on with someone without having a specific, situation in mind is difficult. But my suggestion to anyone, regardless of what your industry is or whether, you want to see change in your personal life and your business life, like find someone who you can talk to, who can help you to see things from a different perspective. That in our own business, that's what we've always done. We've always worked with our own coaches, with our own mentors, because we can't get there ourselves. None of us can. I mean, there's a reason why the best athletes in the world, the top artists, the top performers, the top CEOs all have someone or some organization that can help to support them. And that's really the best advice I think that I could offer is don't try and do it alone. Find someone or something that can help you to get to where you want, and allow that to support your shift.
Not only do I like that and agree with that, but it also aligns with us growing our businesses, because if there is someone who is attracted to what you're doing, Michael, they should by all means reach out to you and actually engage into you in a conversation. And same thing for me. Like that's the best thing you can do if you're pulled, is just have that conversation for that external viewpoint and see what happens from there. Michael, thanks so much for being here. If our audience wanted to get in touch with you or find out what you're doing next, or maybe even mention your book, because we haven't really mentioned it much.
Sure.
Where would you send them to?
Yeah, so the book, The Elite Consulting Mind, you can find it on Amazon in both paperback and Kindle formats. For kind of home base for everything, it's consultingsuccess.com. I have about 1,000 different articles, resources, interviews, and such for consultants over there. And of course, you're more than welcome to connect with me on LinkedIn or any other social channels.
Perfect. Well, that's our time. Thanks for sharing your insight and wisdom.
Hey, Gene, thanks so much. It's been a real pleasure.